sexomnia, which is like sleepwalking, but for your penis. People will do or say just about anything to stay out of prison. Can you blame him? And the more severe the charges, the more bold the defense strategies may be. Presenting an insane legal defense while trying to worm your way out of a $50 speeding ticket is a pretty stupid idea, as it will likely infuriate the judge for wasting the court's time. Besides, there's only $50 on the line, so it's not worth the risk of making things worse by perjuring yourself with a ridiculous story or paying off expert witnesses to lie on your behalf. Yes, that sounds like a terrible idea, like perjury, right? It's like, if it's over a parking ticket, don't do it. If it's don't do it. Look, obviously I'm not advising people to perjure themselves, but it's always like, yo, allegedly, if the crime is worse than the charges for perjury, then hey, logically, the not advice. Kevin wrote this, by the way. I read it. It's how this show works. Welcome. But when it comes to murder, the stakes are too high to hold back, especially if the prosecution has a seemingly airtight case. The accused may be facing life in prison or even the death penalty, so absolutely nothing is off the table. If you could potentially confuse the jurors into believing that your fantastical raving somehow qualifies reasonable doubt rather than unreasonable nonsense, well, you may as well swing for the fences. If the prosecution has a strong case, then a crazy and unprecedented defense may be the only way out. This has led to some absolutely bizarre defenses that were used in murder trials, often successfully. Oh no, I don't like it when the murder... It's like, there's a strong case, they did it, and they're just like, let's get reasonable doubt, baby. Just a tiny little seed. That's all we need. These are the sorts of things that make the Chewbacca defense seem normal by comparison. I have no idea what that is. And while I'll try to keep things light, these are all defenses in murder trials, which means people are going to need to die. Sorry about that, Simon. Yeah, I mean, I like to generally avoid death because it's just not very funny. And it's like, this show is generally me making just a little bit of fun. And when someone dies, you're like, oh, should I really be making fun of them? How much of a knob were they? And are they enough of a knob to deserve this? Spring is just around the corner, everybody, and that means it's time for me to tell you about It's time all year round for me to tell you about Vessi, because they sponsor me all year round. Thank you so much, Vessi. I love you. And I do, more than I love you, I love your shoes. You send me so many shoes. These ones you first sent to me 2 years ago and 3 years ago. 3 years ago now. I wore them constantly for 2 years. I liked them so much that after, probably 1,000 days of constant wear, like shoes do, they wore down a little bit. It's what happens when you wear them all the time. I like them so much, I just bought another brand new pair. Just exactly the same, because I'm like, yeah, I like them a lot. They also have a whole bunch of other shoes. The ones they want me to talk about, because it's almost spring, it's kind of pretty sunny outside today. I can see it. It's coming. Is their Stormburst shoes, which are perfect for spring, because, it rains a little. Speaking of raining, I'll put on this awesome jacket they sent me. It's fully waterproof, as with Vessi's shoes, made of something called Dymatex, so all fully waterproof. Like, you can get water up to here, and you're all good. This jacket, also waterproof. And you might be thinking, I've seen waterproof jackets before, Simon. Tell me something new! Well, I'll tell you something new. It doesn't feel like a waterproof jacket. It just feels like a nice fabric jacket, kind of like their shoes. They don't feel waterproof, but you put them fully in water, and they are, thanks to Dymatex. It's fantastic. I've actually got a beautiful pair of these Stormbursts in white, which I'm wearing at the moment. I'll vary it up with these throughout spring. So, Vessi, it's absolutely one of my favorite sponsors. Everyone who gets Vessi's and tells me about it is like, Simon, Vessi's are legit. They're just the best. And they are. I feel like I even talk about Vessi's outside of sponsor reads because of how much I like them. If you go to vessi.com/blaze, you'll get 15% off your first purchase. It's time to step out in style, rain or shine. Thank you once again to Vessi for sponsoring today's episode. And now back to it. Also, buy this jacket. The jacket's also dope. The affluenza defense. Oh, I know this one. Isn't this the kid who ran someone over and it's like, oh no, he doesn't understand consequences because he's rich. That's a rich person lawyer shit right there. And then didn't he flee the country or something? It began on the night of June the 15th, 2013 in Burleson, Texas. 16-year-old Ethan Couch and his friends had been having a great day so far. They'd stolen a couple of cases of beer from Walmart, played beer pong, and now they were going out for a drive in Ethan's dad's pickup truck. How do you steal a case of beer? When you steal from supermarkets, so you're just whoop, case of beer, whoop, ow. Ethan was driving with his 7 friends crammed into the truck, and they were all drunk out of their minds. Ethan sounds like a bit of a bellend already, doesn't he? It had only been an hour since they were caught on Walmart surveillance cameras stealing the beer, and as far as I can tell, it was completely gone already. Ethan was driving down a rural road doing 70 and a 40 when he came across a mild commotion on the side of the road. An SUV had broken down, and the driver was being assisted by a youth minister who had pulled over to help, and a nearby resident and her 21-year-old daughter who had come out of their house to lend a hand as well. Ethan lost control of his truck, slammed directly into the SUV, and then into the minister's parked car, which was in turn pushed in the way of an oncoming Volkswagen Beetle, and then the truck flipped over and crashed into a tree. This is a devastating car crash. People die, I'm pretty sure. And I think this guy gets away with a slap on the wrist, which is sad, because he needs to be punished. The owner of the SUV, minister, and 2 neighbours were killed in the crash, with 9 others injured. He killed 4 people, a couple of whom were Ethan's passengers. 3 hours after the crash, Ethan's blood alcohol content was measured at 0.24, 3 times the legal limit. Since hours had already passed, it was probably higher at the time of the accident. Since he tested positive for marijuana, and he also tested positive for marijuana and Valium. That's fucked up. I mean, marijuana you can test positive for, and you could have smoked ages ago because it stays in your system, but I think Valium's a little shorter acting, right? Ethan was charged with 2 counts of intoxication, assault, and 4 counts of intoxication manslaughter, which for some reason is less severe than regular manslaughter.
I dare you to make less sense.
Personally, I think being drunk should make the crime more severe, like when they add with a deadly weapon to the end of charges. Except instead of a knife or gun, in this case it's the person's own drunken stupidity that is being weaponized. But regardless, things should still have ended poorly for Ethan, right? Yes, they should have. He stole beer, he got drunk, he drove a car, and he killed people. If you're drunk driving a car and you run someone over, I think that should be murder. You know what you're doing. I would never get in a car after drinking. It's above the limit. It's wild that you'd get faced and do this. It's unbelievable. He didn't just kill 4 people, he killed 4 people in Texas. And Texas isn't a yeehaw state, it is the yeehaw state. Texas leads the nation in executions. I don't think he should be executed for this. I think he should serve a very long stretch in prison. And over 1/3 of all executions in the last 50 years have taken place in Texas. Yeehaw, motherfuckers! Ethan pled guilty to all charges, as there wasn't really any way for him to pretend that he wasn't at fault. But that still left the sentencing hearing. Prosecutors wanted the 16-year-old to be sentenced as an adult and to receive the maximum penalty of 20 years. I think that's pretty fair. I think 20 years for this is about the right amount of punishment. Which I know seems heavy, but he killed 4 people, and he knew what he was doing. The defense, however, had a different proposal. They believed that Ethan shouldn't go to prison at all because he was simply too wealthy. Obviously, we all understand that American justice has different rules for rich people, but you aren't actually supposed to say that out loud in court. Using psychologist G. Dick Miller as their expert witness, the defense argued that Ethan suffered from a psychological condition known as affluenza, a portmanteau of affluent and influenza. Is that a real thing? Did this exist before him? I mean, this is some rich people. The lawyering here is extraordinary. Of course, that is by no means a recognized disorder, but it was being used to argue diminished capacity. This dick was claiming his name, nothing else we're implying there, it's just his name, was claiming that because Ethan was a rich, spoiled brat whose parents never set any boundaries, he didn't understand the difference between right and wrong, or that actions had consequences. Then send his parents to prison! I can't for the life of me understand how attempting to remove the consequences from Ethan's actions would help fix this supposed problem, but I'm not a licensed psychologist. No, it doesn't fix the problem. Ethan deserves to go to prison for a long time, in my opinion. However, the judge seemed to believe that if affluenza was reason enough to let Ethan off the hook, he had been too rich to know right from wrong, and there was apparently no point in trying to teach him now. Ethan was sentenced to 0 days in prison, 10 years probation, and therapy rehab at a long-term inpatient facility. Are you shitting my pants? That's ridiculous. I thought they were going to be like, he got 2 years, which would be ridiculous. But none? If I ever get drunk and drive a truck and kill people, I'm going to look up this lawyer because, damn, son, There was no time requirement put in place for how long Ethan was supposed to stay in rehab. Under the terms of his probation, Ethan was not allowed to drink, do drugs, or drive a vehicle. 2 years after this ruling, a viral video surfaced that alleged to show Ethan, known in the media as the affluenza teen, violating his parole by playing beer pong at a party. Despite the psychologist's claims, it seems that Ethan was well aware that actions had consequences, and to avoid those consequences, Ethan and his mother fled to Mexico as soon as the video started making the rounds. I told you. Because if he gets caught drinking, then he goes to prison for the probation period, right? Where he belongs. They were tracked down by the FBI and US Marshals. Yes! Brought back to America, and Ethan was sentenced to 2 years in prison for his parole violation. His mother received 5 years for preventing the capture of a criminal, as well as charges of money laundering. What? She fled to Mexico. They were like, oh, we also noticed that you're laundering money. FBI, super competent. I love you. The case has sparked major controversy as it highlighted the extent to which rich people don't have to play by the same rules as everybody else. Oh, I'm in honor of this.
So, what's going on in this neck of the woods?
A couple of years ago, some American legend sent me an FBI cap, like an official one from the FBI. I'm going to wear this. Yeah, FBI. Dick even discussed regret for his part in the trial. Not for using the affluenza defense, he seemed to completely stand by that. No, Dick's only regret was using the term affluenza, as he felt the public latched onto that word and ignored the actual psychological argument. You know, the argument that rich people can't be held accountable for their crimes because they've been too sheltered from reality to know any better. What the are you talking about, Dick? His name? Nothing else meant by that. The gay panic defense.
Gay!
Okay, I feel like I know this one as well. Isn't this where, like, some dude stabs someone or whatever, and he's like, oh, my defense is I thought he was being gay to me, or something insane like this. This defense has actually been used countless times with varying degrees of efficacy, and it is unfortunately still being used today in many jurisdictions. It's a legal defense strategy that attempts to use someone's heterosexuality to prove they acted either in self-defense with diminished capacity, or even that they were temporarily insane. Gotta see where this goes. The strategy is pretty straightforward. If you were to murder another person, that would obviously be bad. But what if that person was the same gender as you, and they had also tried to hit on you? Just pass it off. Be like, okay, dude, not for me, but yeah, just let it be. Just be like, no. And that's it. Easy. No need to murder anyone. Is murder really that bad a course of action in that scenario? Obviously, the answer should be yes, it is still bad. If it was suddenly legal to murder someone for making an unwanted pass at you, women would be flooding the streets with the blood of their tactless and overly aggressive suitors.
There's an old saying. Gotta catch 'em all.
But that's not actually the case, and the fact that the advances were coming from a gay person shouldn't really make a difference. I am 100% straight, but on the occasion where guys have hit on me, I've simply said that I was flattered, but not into that. Yet just me, not for me, my dude. Unless they were objectively hideous, in which case I left off the part about being flattered. You can still be flattered if someone ugly thinks you're attractive, can't you? Regardless, I didn't fly into some sort of blind rage because I'm aggressively heterosexual, and so I would be driven to murder because some guy correctly identified what a hot piece of ass I am. I can't even imagine that response, but apparently a lot of jurors can, because the jurors are like, yeah, I'd murder someone if they thought I was gay and hit on me. Just be like, thank you. But apparently a lot of jurors can, because the defense has shown some amount of success, although decreasingly so in more recent years. Yes, should be one which we gradually eliminate as people become, I don't know, less homophobic maybe. One of the most famous examples of this defense was used in the United States way back in 1995 in the murder of Scott Amador. Admittedly, this whole thing was really up situation, and what Scott did wasn't right, but it also wasn't a justification for murder. If he had just tried flirting with Jonathan Schmitz in person like a normal human being, none of this would have probably happened. At least, I hope not, but instead, he decided to do it on national television. What is going to go down on national television? The Jenny Jones Show was a daytime talk show hosted by comedian Jenny Jones. It started airing in 1990 and was originally conceived as an alternative to the trashier and more sensational talk shows of the day, like the Jerry Springer Show. We had I'm sure we got broadcasts of Jerry Springer as well. We had the Jeremy Kyle show, which I don't know how trashy Jerry Springer is, but holy you got some competition from Jeremy Kyle. I think he ended up getting taken off the air because something terrible happened, which I don't remember what it was. But it's better that it's off the air now, because it's But I guess that had all flown out of the window by 1995, because the title of the episode Scott was filmed for was titled Revealing Same-Sex Secret Crush.
That's a little gay. Hold on.
Scott and Jonathan had met through a mutual friend, Donna, and when Jonathan agreed to appear on the show, he believed that either Donna or a new co-worker of his was his secret admirer. The producers had left out the same-sex hook for the episode when inviting him on the show, and even assured him that his secret admirer was a woman.
Oh yeah, that guy is totally straight.
This is like... Obviously, the murder is the bigger not cool thing, but this is also not cool. It's not entirely clear how that clarification came up, but Jonathan may have been concerned about being forced into a weird situation. Of course, that's exactly what he was forced into. He was polite in front of the cameras and said that he was flattered, but straight. But that makes for boring TV, so Jones had to keep pushing somehow. She got Scott to describe fantasies he had about Jonathan involving rope and whipped cream.
Oh, no.
This is like insanely inappropriate, which is just completely inappropriate, yes. Not the fantasies themselves, but who the brings a person they barely know on national television and tells them these fantasies in front of a live studio audience. I could imagine very few things that would be as uncomfortable as this. Three days after they flew home from the taping, Scott left a suggestive note at Jonathan's house. Suggestive, but not explicit. At this point, Jonathan went to the bank, took out some cash, purchased a shotgun, and went to Scott's house. He asked Scott if he was the one to leave the note, and when Scott smiled, Jonathan returned to his car, grabbed the shotgun, and murdered Scott. He then called 911 and confessed to the murder. Jonathan was unsurprisingly charged with first-degree murder, but his lawyer was able to use the gay panic defense to talk the jury down to a secondary murder charge and a lesser sentence. They argued that Scott had ambushed and humiliated Jonathan, which isn't an unfair statement, but it didn't change the fact that Scott's murder was premeditated. Not only was it days after the initial event, but the actions directly before the murder show premeditation as well. Most notably the fact that Jonathan had the presence of mind to go to the bank before buying the shotgun. If he was actually in some sort of panicked rage, he would have seen the note, gone to the store to get a gun, realized he forgot to stop at the bank first, got annoyed that this time of day would take like 40 minutes to get to the bank and back, and just settled for punching Scott in the face and being done with it. Maybe it wouldn't have been the exact sequence of events, but the actual plan was far too involved to be considered anything other than first-degree murder, were it not for the successful use of the gay panic defense. And of course, there was an extra wrinkle thrown in during the civil trial by Scott's family against the Jenny Jones show. Yeah, they also need some responsibility here, and I hope they have to write Mr. Scott's family a massive check.
I'm going to sue you out of existence.
According to the show's producer, a friend of Scott's claimed that the night after the show was taped, Scott and Jonathan went out for drinks together and hooked up. This is, of course, just hearsay, but if the story is true and that friend came forward during the criminal trial, Jonathan may have been convicted of first-degree murder after all. That sounds super hearsay-ish. And look, I don't want to side with Jonathan here because he killed someone, but I don't think that's true. But even though it's insane to think that the gay panic defense is still used today with some amount of success, and even though this murder was completely unjustified, please just ask your crush out for drinks and a coffee like a normal person. Please do that. Don't be weird. Don't take them on no, just no. Ambushing people on talk shows is weird and inappropriate. The murder of Bonnie Lee Bakley. I very briefly mentioned this case in a recent episode about the CSI effect, but the actual details of the case are much crazier than anything we got into in that episode.
It's a bit nutty.
Bonnie Lee Bakley Bonnie Lee Bakley was the second wife of Emmy Award-winning actor Robert Blake, best known for his role as Tony Beretta in the show Beretta. I've never heard of Robert Blake or Tony Beretta or Beretta. Sorry. When the couple met, Robert was 66 and Bonnie was only 42, which certainly tracks based on her reputation. Half his age plus 7, 66, 33 plus 7, 40. Yeah, no, Bonnie, that's okay. Like 66 and 42, in my head I'm like, okay, that's fine. Which certainly tracks based on her reputation. Though Bonnie was Robert's second wife, he was her 10th husband. She was alleged to have a history of exploiting older men, especially celebrities, and was dating the son of Marlon Brando when she met Robert. But hey, maybe this marriage would be different for the both of them.
No.
10 marriages? No, it's not like, oh, this time it's right. It's like, it's never going to be right. It happened 10 times. Except it wasn't. They were married in November of 2000 and were miserable the entire time. Everybody knew they had a horrible relationship, and Robert even told detectives that Bonnie deserved to die during his initial interrogation.
That also a red flag.
Crimson.
It's hard to say exactly how their marriage fell apart so quickly, though Robert certainly alleged many reasons, such as Bonnie cheating and selling sex tapes of herself. On May the 4th, 2001, just 6 months after they got married, Robert and Bonnie went to dinner at Vitello's Italian restaurant in Studio City, California. After dinner, they returned to the car, which was parked around the corner. Bonnie was fatally shot in the head while sitting in the car, and of course, Robert was a suspect. He wasn't just a suspect, he was a suspect against whom there was a mountain of evidence. How is he going to get away with this? Over 70 witnesses testified about how horrible the marriage was and how much Robert hated Bonnie. Okay, sorry, I thought they were going to be witnesses to the actual physical murder. I mean, that just because they have a bad marriage doesn't mean he's going to murder her. Two of his stuntmen even claimed that Robert tried to hire them to kill his wife, but neither was willing to do so. At the very least, neither was willing to do so for the paltry $10,000 he was allegedly offering.
Why settle?
Bro, you need to step it up a little. Also, you just asking people like that you know? Bruh, what are you doing? There was also gunpowder residue found on Robert's hands following the murder. This is where the CSI effect came in, as expert testimony said that the gunpowder residue didn't mean with 100% certainty that Robert fired the gun. But if he didn't fire the gun, who did? Well, that's a very difficult question to answer, especially considering what gun Bonnie was shot with. The murder weapon was found in a trash can about 10 feet away from Robert's car.
Why would you do that? What?
Bro, you gotta throw that in the ocean. Go out on a boat and throw it in the ocean. What are you do? Don't throw it in the ocean from the beach. Don't throw it in a river. Get on a boat, take it out to the ocean, or melt that down if you can. What are you doing? Sorry, I mean, I'm going to stop giving advice for criminals, but I've got a true crime show, and this is some, like, basic crime shit right now. It was an unregistered vintage Walther P38 German pistol from World War II, which is not your typical murder weapon. The average person wouldn't even know where to find a gun like that. Of course, if someone wanted to track down an expensive vintage gun like that, they could always ask Robert. He was a known collector of fancy guns. I guess you don't need to add don't use your extremely rare collectible firearms as murder weapons to the list of rules for criminals. Though. Like, Jesus Christ. When police found the gun in the trash can, there was still one bullet loaded. Bonnie had been shot twice. During a search of Robert's house, a box of ammunition was found that matched the rounds fired from the murder weapon. I have no idea how he gets away with this, because that's madness. It was admittedly a popular brand of ammo, but there were exactly 3 bullets missing from the box. Throw the bullets in the ocean! The f*** are you doing? You live in California, just go to the ocean. That's an awful lot of evidence. Some of it is circumstantial, and some of it was witness testimony, so maybe that couldn't be trusted. There's nothing indicating why it would be the case, but perhaps the 2 stuntmen had a personal grudge against Robert for one reason or another. Then, their personal grudge is like, yeah, but they're under oath in court. Do they really want to perjure themselves over, like, some grudge? I don't think so, my dudes. And this guy seems, allegedly, in my opinion, guilty as sin. How does he get away with it?
I don't understand. I don't understand, Paige. I don't understand.
Then there was the fact that the gunpowder residue was ruled inconclusive. It was definitely all over Robert's hands, clothes, and shoes, but that didn't mean with absolute certainty that he fired the gun. Okay, fine. Let's assume for the sake of argument that we're willing to ignore all of the extremely convincing evidence, just like the jury was. There's still a problem. Exactly where the was Robert when Bonnie was shot. They left Vitello's together, and Bonnie was shot while she was in the car, yet Robert allegedly didn't see anything happen. He was going to need a pretty good alibi to establish reasonable doubt, and his explanation was one of the most bizarre defenses used in a trial. He had to go back to the restaurant to get his gun.
What?
He'd accidentally left it in the booth while they were having dinner. So he had essentially admitted to detectives that Bonnie deserved to die and he wanted her dead, but he contested that he couldn't have killed her because he had to go back to the restaurant to get his gun, and when he returned to the car, somebody else had already shot her before he got the chance to. That's certainly some incredible timing on the part of whoever killed her, and while I say that rather flippantly, if Robert really was innocent, then kudos to the real killer, because that would have been a masterclass in framing someone for murder. Surely they would have tapes or something, and they would have, witnesses or something. Oh yeah, it's probably worth noting that before Robert returned to the restaurant, a busboy cleaned the table and did not find a gun there. What? Shocking! I know that your average busboy barely makes minimum wage and doesn't really care about their job, but even if he did a half-assed job cleaning the table, I'm sure he would have noticed if there was a gun there. Do you ever have those? I just have this in my mind. You know when you're like, is that a memory? Is that a dream? Or is that something I saw on TV? Because I swear, I've been somewhere and someone left a gun behind. And I was like, there's a gun here. But I feel like it must have been TV because I don't remember exactly when this happened. I don't come into contact with guns very much. God, what a weird memory. Where the f*** did that come from?
It's totally made up. Pure fiction. It's fiction. It's fiction. We made it up. We made this one up. It's a made-up tale.
But Robert's extremely believable story, combined with the jury demanding more conclusive forensic evidence, ultimately resulted in his acquittal. And if you found these stories entertaining, with any luck, we can do this again, not just restricted to murder. That way I can tell you about the Twinkie defense, the blowjob defense, and sexomnia, which is like sleepwalking, but for your penis.
Ha ha! Dangly part.
Thanks for watching. That I would be driven to murder because some guy correctly identified what a hot piece of ass I am. I can't